Good morning, everyone. This is Douglas coming to you from Cape Town, and today we're talking to Paul in the UK, 2 hours behind, also in the morning. I suppose actually I'm in the afternoon already. Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Morning, Doug. How are you?
I'm good. So here's the thing, what people probably won't know is we've been working damn hard to set this up. And generally from my side, things have been happening from big storms that are where trees are getting blown down around us to crazy eye stuff that happened when I was at the ophthalmologist, and just life. And but we've worked hard, and now at last we've found the way, and here we are. So yay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll take your lead on how much you want to talk about everything, but for me, as I said to you when I first reached out to you, what was it, about 7 or 8 years ago that I first came to you, and having gone through level 1 and 2 twice, and having practiced this system that you shared with me literally every day with every single patient, I pretty much ditched all my other stuff. I was really, really grateful that you were able to fit me in. So yeah, I'm really excited to speak to you. So you've had some stuff going on, but that's like you said, that's life. So
well, you see, I think one of the things that people need to understand is when you're on a journey to discover things, it's not always going to be rosy. And it's kind of when you ask enough questions, you often hit uncomfortable places, because you're questioning what you thought you knew and you thought was an absolute certainty or an absolute truth. And those are the things that we actually build a premise on, and then we stop questioning that. And it's quite amazing. But I also find that whenever I'm going into those places and scratching those things, it's amazing how sometimes the universe, if you like, slaps back. And like, so I've been playing over my experience on Thursday, and for those who didn't read the newsletter, I went to the ophthalmologist to go and get deeper understanding of my eyes, not what's wrong with them, but just my eyes, because I'm learning more and I'm learning different ways of integrating that I'll bring to you guys, because we know what we can do with activation and we have an eye program. But here's a part that I didn't look at, and now I'm learning more. But when I had these drops put in to dilate my pupils, and I pretty much got overdosed on it, and then to be stuck wide-eyed for pretty much 24 hours. And then when I found that thing on Sunday that basically, straight Google search, this is what happens. It's usually 4 to 6 hours. Kids often 24 hours. And first of all, people should read that and go, well, Doug is a kid, so no wonder. But aside from that, all I can think about is my experience as an adult was horrendous, shocking, and shit. As an adult, what does a kid experience? If kids routinely get stuck in this for 24 hours. And so it just brings up for me how often in our medical system, the one that we all use and we trust, how often the methods we use to test and get information sometimes have higher risk than the information we gather from them. And it's just interesting. It's not saying it's a wrong procedure, but can't we do it better?
I think I think it's something that, so off the back of the starting your work, however many years ago it was, I've kind of expanded into a much more diverse range, as a lot of us do. I think you start to consider a lot of the psychological sides of the kind of the psychosomatic, what parts of this experience is physical, psychological, the both, how they're interacting. But what you're saying is really interesting, because for me, it's meant that I've gone back both for myself and for people I've worked with and looked at all of the experiences that I had as a child, both physically, mentally, emotionally, all of it. And I've started to draw strings between those experiences early on and the kind of the chain of events that have come off the back of that, and all the things that have happened as a result of those, and how they're still showing up today, again, both physically and emotionally. And it does make me think, as someone who's hoping to be a father in the not too distant future, it does make me think, Christ, I really want to develop my awareness of this, because let's be honest, we all, as parents, we screw our kids up in so many ways, and to some extent that's a natural part of being a parent. But that awareness,
I think what you're saying is spot on, because for me, as you know, when Matt was born, the immediate instinct that I had as I held him for the first time was, oh crap, I've got work to do, because if I don't do my work, he's going to have to do it for me. And so for me, it was a very easy leverage. So the fact that that's part of your plan, you're already preempting that, and that's great. Because the thing is that we don't have to be perfect. We're never going to get things always right. We are going to screw things up. But if there's areas that you actually have control over, that you can go and do your work on, and doing your work on has so many aspects to it, that it makes you be more present, more, it's amazing. And I know I'm going totally off track, but I've got an email that I've got to edit a little bit to put the story up, and it's from a lady in Denmark who was on the last program that we had ran in Copenhagen, and I'd actually almost forgotten, but she's now a mom, and since you brought it up, it's a power. She's a mom. But when she came on the program, she was 4 months pregnant, except there wasn't an acceptance of the pregnancy. There was a very clear, and it came up in the story, and she told it quite adamantly. And through the 4 days, we reached the point where that was the block. And so we had her get clear that this baby growing inside her, it might have been more than 4 months actually, she actually wanted it. Then she had this tiny tummy. You almost didn't know she was pregnant. She had this tiny tummy. And we had her stand in front of everyone and tell her baby, I choose you. I want you. I'm getting goosebumps now because she reminded me of it. And her belly expanded. Her baby stepped into this. Oh, I'm actually really thrilling now. Her baby stepped into that space. 35 of us sat there going, her belly's getting bigger. No, that's not possible. Maybe she took a breath. No, her belly was getting bigger. And she reminded me of that in an email recently. And it's amazing, because the thing is that she hadn't realized in her resistance to what had happened. She was almost telling this little thing growing inside her, I haven't yet chosen you. I don't choose you. I want to do something else. I'm frustrated. And just that physiological choice, because our neural system, our physiology likes clarity. And when she goes, I choose you, we all sit there in awe, and it's beautiful. And it's, yeah, that's the thing. So if you're going, I'm going to be a dad, or I'm going to be a dad soon, and I want to get this sorted, your clarity there already makes the journey into what you're going to do clearer. So it gives you a reference point on, because often when things are difficult, the first thing we go is, why am I doing this? And if you don't know why, you'll quit. But if you're clear why, boy, the work you'll do and how much further you'll go and how much more suffering you will be willing to accept, because you've already, in your why, given it meaning. Because suffering that has meaning ceases to be suffering. It actually just becomes learning. Because somebody had emailed me and said, Doug, when your eyes were like that and you were disorientated and all of these things, did you think about activating? And I said, absolutely. Did you? No. Why? And this is kind of how learning has to be in my world. And it doesn't mean I'm right. This is my world. So I've just had a trauma. My system feels really violated and shocked. And I can pull myself out. I have the skills and the tools to do that. I can hack myself. It's what I do. But if I hack myself, how ever am I going to understand anybody else who's gone through this experience that doesn't have those tools? And I promise you, there were many times when I was like, fuck it, I need to do something. And then I'd go, you started this journey for a reason. And this is, and it's a choice. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it's my choice. But it's interesting because here, I'll give you two beautiful ironies. Because so Thursday was when this happened. My eyes got dilated, and one of the places I was meant to be on Thursday evening was a men's group, where one of my amazing friends was coming to celebrate that he'd had double cataract surgery and was seeing in color, and we were doing a celebration for him. And I had to 2 hours before leave him this voice message and go, the irony here is you're celebrating ophthalmologists. Me, I'm suffering at the hands of one, not maliciously. My ophthalmologist, I think he's a great guy. I enjoyed him. So there's not a judgment on him. And there's the irony. And on Sunday morning, when I felt like I'd been punched in my eyeballs, and I described it as DOMs in my eyeballs, that's all I could think of. The person who emailed me to ask for something is someone who has, in his entire story in the world of activation, is about eyes and blindness and overcoming blindness and all of these things. So the perfect person to understand and reach out was Rob. And I always find the universe almost kind of crazy like that. I don't understand it, but I just responded and said, my email's about to go out. You'll of the one person in the whole world who could truly understand, it would be you. And so the thing that came back is, it's, hey Doug, boom. And it's kind of, this is the beautiful side of the world. But yeah, we've got work to do, dude. We don't know answers, so we've got to do work.
I think the thing that's really potent for me is that you know, all this stuff, when you open your mind to it, it triggers this kind of journey of exploration, which is awesome. And like you were saying about the lady with the belly that suddenly started to step into the world, like when I think back on kind of my own journey, which, to be honest, like, so I went from you know, doing your kind of traditional training. You know, you go to university, you get your degree in a physical therapy. I did sports therapy, whatever. And then I remember there's a guy on the course that I last did. I forget his name. It was really annoying because I kind of connected with him. We were quite similar, but the Scottish guy, you may remember, he was saying, like, after you'd done work on me and we talked about, you know, the death of my dog and how much I was holding, how much guilt I was holding for that, and I blubbed like a baby on the couch. He came up to me afterwards, and I remember saying on the couch, like, I think I've basically lived 90% of my life in a state of defense. You know, and this kind of feeling attacked, and, you know, all the stuff we know about fight, flight, or freeze. And he came up to me afterwards and said, you know, what you've just gone through, you know, the ownership of I've lived in defense, and bursting out to tears, and having that release. He goes, that's what I feel like I need, but I'm just not ready to do it yet. And I said to him, yeah, but you got to remember, this is my second time around, and I've been practicing this daily for, you know, however many years. I've been going on my own journey, whatever. So, but what's interesting for me is when you look at the mama who's let her baby step into the world and had that moment, what I think is really challenging is when you get to the point where consciously you want to make those acknowledgements in yourself, and you want to take those ownerships, but you don't know how, and you're hitting a dead end or a wall. You know, so that defense, again, relating it back to me selfishly, just because it's my reference, is, you know,
all right.
It's all about me. You know, the links that people are drawing between the gut brain and the brain to use that, and the amount of stress and symptoms and stuff I've had with my abdomen, be it pain in my hip flexors, be it digestive issues, etc. I'm so sick of it, and I'm so ready to make the connections and embrace it and move past it. But throughout my exploration so far, I haven't been able to do that, despite, you know, I seem to achieve the results for patients and clients, and I'm able to kind of objectively look at them, but I can't do it for myself. So there's obviously a block in my own psyche around my ability to accept and embrace whatever that block is and step into the world like the baby did, I guess.
Well, you know, JL and I are having ongoing conversations, and one of the things that he likes to talk about is awareness and capacity. So people have the awareness of the problem they want to solve, the thing they want to overcome. What we need to do as well in order to make it possible is create a capacity within your physiology to do that. So in a sense, creating the space for you, the work to happen. And sometimes what happens is we want to do the work, we're willing to do this, but actually subconsciously, there's a whole part of us that says, but I'm not giving up this, and this, or that. So as long as you don't ask me to do any of those things, I am 100% committed. Okay, so that's what you're 10% committed. That's great, because you have, and so often we come up against these things, and it's I always get quite surprised when I get something thrown back at me, and I realize that here's something. So like this week, I'm not doing any dairy because I got called on it yesterday, because I went for a colonic, and we were talking about stuff, and I talk about, oh yeah, sometimes my first meal of the day is 2, 3, 4 o'clock. I'll have tea and coffee in the meantime, and but I do that automatically. I don't consciously fast or intermittent fast. It's just how my system likes to be. But so nobody had ever questioned, well, how much milk are you putting in your tea and your coffee and that's really actually not helping your system anyway. And so in my mind, I've gone, I'm doing this, but actually I'm doing a big thing that's not that. And I've had a mental block, and I actually felt like the naughty kid. So let me just acknowledge, when I have tea, I have this much milk, this much, oh yeah. And suddenly I could see it. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. So I know that I can have the whole conversation about dairy, and but I'll tell you that most of the dairy that I have is non-pasteurized, all this good, But all of that was me making sure that I didn't have to give it up ever, and so at some level, my brain created that. And so yesterday I sat there and went, oh, crap. Okay, I can do a week, because when it was like, could you do a month with no dairy? I went, no, because that's too big a stretch. But I can do a week. A week is tangible, and it's like, yes, of course I could do a month, but I still want to give myself a fighting chance to get it right. And after a week, I'll see if I'm like going, holy moly, it's different. I can, and it helps me to get to another phase and another phase. And why? What was the leverage? Well, if you unload your liver a bit, the liver has a huge impact on the eyes. Okay, I'm in, since I'm on an eye journey, so I got leveraged. I got, and I love it.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because there's times when you think you're doing everything right, but I mean, there's no accounting for the subconscious brain and all the stories it decides to tell you. And I think, I'm a massive analyzer, and I think as a result of that, I get one or two things. I get the bad side of that, which is the overthinking, but then I get the good side of that, which is awareness. And I think I have a really, really good awareness of my own body, my environment, and how I'm interacting with it. But it doesn't necessarily mean I'm always getting it right. Like I always, I'm pretty good with my breathing 99% of the time, but then I will catch myself where I'm like locked up and in my chest, and you sort of, you think you're doing stuff right, but then I don't think we often give enough credit to the power of the subconscious mind and how it's driving behaviors, physical states. Like even when you're standing washing the dishes, having that awareness to check in with your body and go, oh shit, I'm tensing my shoulders, I'm not engaging my hips. I'm, the other day, so like ironing and washing dishes and stuff is something that really sets off my thoracic. I get this like deep ache. And the other day I've been playing around.
Sorry to be sexist, but I think that every guy has that same issue. That's amazing.
You mean I'm not special?
Creates pain. There must be a genetic problem. We can solve it.
I know, it's almost like I made it up, right? But it was interesting. Like the other day when I was washing the dishes, I started to drive my pelvis into the counter, and I've been having, like when the hack tool came out, I've started thinking more about the bungee and And to be honest, the hack tool so far for me has actually built my relationship with the bungee more than the tool.
Perfect.
Because I've been getting that out loads, and I've found myself in situations thinking, okay, so I haven't got the bungee now or the ability to use it. So how can I recreate it? And so when I was washing dishes, I started basically thrusting my hips into the counter, and I felt the pressure in my glutes build and the pressure in my back decrease.
Did you ask the counter for permission?
It was a consensual situation.
So here's an interesting thing. When I first launched the bungee in about 2008, one of my clients, she got her husband to set up a hook opposite the dishes. And she literally stands in her bungee and does the dishes and said she went from a place of hating doing the dishes to feeling absolutely amazing when she'd finished the dishes. Now she loves doing the dishes because it makes her get in the bungee. And I was like, now that is a creative way to leverage yourself to do something that you know is good for you.
Definitely. And I think what's interesting as well is I think it depends. Like I often think to myself when I look around the house and I see like mobility tools. And the other day when I sent you the picture of me at my workstation with the Bosu ball out, and like when my wife comes home, I sometimes have this thought that, you know, the house, I'm slowly morphing the house into this kind of mobility fascia release fun zone where there's just tools everywhere. And it does make you think maybe that's what's needed. And actually maybe by not molding your environment with things like hooks in front of the dishwasher, maybe you're not committing fully to, well, I know this activity fucks my body up, pardon my French, everyone, but I know this activity screws my body up. So what am I going to do about it? But like you say, there's that mental block because you think,
we just go, oh, I do this, it hurts. But when I do that, I feel great. No, well, then the question is, what can we do differently when you do that activity that hurts, and figure out why it's hurting and what you can do differently? And that's the empowerment. And the thing is that when you start to notice that, and when you start to find ways, then when you're talking to your client, you get to share that story too, because you go, you know, we're human, we have the same issues, we have the same problems. And so when we solve that problem in ourselves, it's easier to share the story. And you know, the thing about I just want to jump back to what came up when you were saying, you know, you're very analytical, but you're also very aware. Part of being analytical is also we like to be. Do you know what hand this is?
Your right hand.
Correct. We like to be right. Sorry, I couldn't resist. And so the thing about being right and being analytical and being clever is that once we've decided a direction of thought, we then go and build a compelling story to prove it to be right, no matter how much the evidence may prove otherwise. And so we see this in the world a heck of a lot. Like a heck of a lot more now in the last year than ever before. Someone's come up with a narrative, and then everything is driven to that narrative, even when evidence appears that's completely opposite. And so the vulnerability, what was that?
It's my phone, it's my house phone. I thought it'd throw you off.
That's all right. That's all right. So what it requires for us to be wrong, risk being wrong, is that vulnerability of, this is the answer that I know to be true right now, and this is the story I've created to make it true. But it may not be the right story. And I think that's why that picture I love, that I used to have it in my old manual. Maybe it was in the manual when you were 7 or 8 years ago, with the young woman and the old woman in the same picture. And depending on what you saw first, it stopped you seeing the other one. And you could get two groups of people to argue about what they're seeing because they were so diametrically opposite. No, there's a 20-year-old woman, she's like this. No, there's an old woman, she's 90 years old. Are you stupid? And we get so caught up in proving that we're right, instead of going, well, this is one answer. Is there the possibility that there's another answer that's also right? Because you don't always have to be wrong. Because if it's always right or wrong, then we better fight for that answer to be right, because otherwise we're going to look stupid. Because we're clever too. And so the analytical mind likes to find something and go and almost prove that pathway to be true. And the thing is that the world, and in that moment, it may be 100% that was accurate and true. But suddenly things change. And, you know, Matt and I listened to the radio on the way to school in the morning. And yesterday was interesting because they were bringing a whole lot of new words that have come into the dictionary. And for example, the word Zoom now literally means what you and I are doing. It is an online meeting. That is the new definition of Zoom. It's changed. Not, hey, Zoom, Zoom, there goes my car. Zoom is now an online meeting. So what was true a year ago now is no longer true. The one I liked the most, I actually wrote it here because I knew it was going to come up, or I was going to find a way to put it in, is doom scrolling. It is also a new word in the dictionary. What do you think doom scrolling means?
No idea.
This is when you get caught up on your phone and you're literally scrolling through your social media feed for more and more bad news. It is so prevalent that they've put it in the dictionary, doom scrolling. You know, it's like, so since we're talking about mindset and point of focus and stuff like that, you go, okay, so they've even decided to put a word in the dictionary called doom scrolling, which basically says, I'm going to go and look for a whole lot of really, really crap news, bad news, terrible things, and I'm just going to keep going. And until I get my fix, until I'm so desperate, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so negative, I'm so depressed that I can't scroll anymore.
What I find interesting about that as well is that there's been a few conversations I've had with friends where, and I think we create, like, again, so much of it, our association with it, we create, because so a lot of my friends have said they've come off Instagram because it's just full of toxic stuff they see every day. And I was saying to them, but what's interesting about that for me is, so on Instagram, I think you have the control, any social media, you have the ability to cultivate what you see. And so on Instagram, for me, I follow loads of what I find to be really inspiring people, you know, people like, for one, the most famous one, Joe Dispenza, or any of these other people that are doing really great work with the body, with coaching, with the mind, all that stuff. So when I go onto Instagram, for me, I'm getting this massive hit of inspiration, ideas, creativity, etc. So my relationship with Instagram is great, but other people, it's not. And I think to myself, but you have relative control over that. I mean, I know social media companies are good at
such a metaphor for everything. And that is, you get to choose your point of focus. And so I like that, because so what you're saying is, because people don't even realize that they can in Instagram choose what they get, they choose to ignore it completely, which takes a lot of energy and effort. So well, I don't want to risk all that crap, so I'm just going to ignore that it exists entirely. And so suddenly a tool that could deliver you good news as well, it delivers you no news, which basically sounds like freeze. Fight, flight, freeze. Freeze, oh, I know nothing. You know, so how many people, you know, so what do you think about what's going on in the world today? Well, I don't connect with anything. I don't know what's going on in the world. Well, good luck with that survival strategy. You know, did you not get the message saying that you know, they're going to take a bus through your house at 12 o'clock today? No, I'm not interested. I'm not listening. Okay, good luck. Bye-bye. Nice knowing you. Because stuff still happens. You still have to have a vague idea what's going on around you.
Dip your toe in every now and again. Yeah. It's funny. I've been doing some more online courses with NLP and developing my coaching stuff. And most of the coaching work I've done with clients so far has always drawn it back to fight, flight, or freeze, because I know that's a fundamental part of your system that I've learned. And what's interesting is I've found so far nothing that I can't link back to it. And NLP practitioners will have a field day with that last sentence I just said. But when you look at the amount of people, like there's a kid next door, 7-year-old kid next door, who's brilliant fun, and I often like chuck him riddles and I ask him questions, and I talk to my wife about it, who's a primary school teacher, and it's amazing how many kids have that automated response of I don't know. and there's no processing, there's no creativity. They're not taught to have an open mind or to consider and to explore. And so in the NLP world that I'm learning, they're saying, well, the best response to try to tease that out of people is, I know you don't know, but if you did know, what might the answer be? Just to try to shift it. And I think there's so many of us who, like, you going back to social media thing, who don't realize that actually we are just fight, flight, or freezing with relationships at work, relationships at home, the news, any of it. Because like you said, it's easier to disengage. It's hard. To do the work is actually harder.
Yeah. And so your default system becomes numbed out and disconnected. And numbed out and disconnected means you're almost watching a movie of your life happening. You're not, the highs are not high, the lows are not low. It comes through with language like boredom. Boredom is depression. Numbed out is depression. And we know that the depression stats are through the roof. Yeah, because part of our disconnecting is to stop us feeling the stuff that we don't want to feel. But guess what? You don't get to feel the good stuff either. And this is a conversation I'll have with my clients. When something's hurting so bad, I go, you know how awesome this is going to be? Because if you can feel this much pain in your body, and we always remember say, I'm not hurting you, I'm showing you where your pain is. This is the pain you didn't feel. Because you wouldn't feel that intensity, you cannot have that high intensity of joy on the other side either. It's a quid pro quo. It's a balanced system. You have to feel this in order to feel that. And when people understand that, then you go, bring on the pain. I want the joy. I want the ecstasy. I want the openness, the vulnerability, the love, the whatever. But you can't have that if you're not willing to do the work, which is into that dark and murky place. And sometimes, you go into those dark and murky places and you find this like horrible, ugly demon looking thing and you realize that's you. And then you've got to go, it's okay. Because on the flip side is this amazing angel of light who's the exact opposite of that. And we're all of those things, we're all wonderful people and we're all shitty people, and it's okay. And it's funny. Tells me how awesome they are and they're always awesome, I'm never down, I don't trust you one bit.
No. Well, because it's not the true human experience. And Jordan Peterson's become really famous for it, and that a lot of the coaching talk at the moment in the world is all around Carl Jung's idea of the shadow work and your subconscious mind and the propensity every human brain has for darkness. And there's something about that I just connected with so much. And one of my favorite quotes that I came across was Carl Jung's quotes was, until you make your unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct you and you'll call it fate. And I think that combined with a lot of the talking with, like I say, again, Jordan Peterson was famous for it, but it's not his work, it's Jung's work about until you embrace the darkest sides of your psyche. And I've said this to friends before, and it's really shocking, which I kind of quite like because I'm a bit of a stirrer. But when you having a conversation with people about all this stuff and you say, like, ultimately, I think personally that one of the best things we can do as human beings is embrace the fact that we all have the propensity to be like awful, like truly, truly abhorrent, like Hitler level awful.
Yeah.
And by embracing the fact that you have that propensity as a human being, you then have much more ability to engage with the light side of your psyche. It's those two, it's that Native American thing.
You've increased your database of experience in both directions. But just to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, I think that's an amazing social strategy that you have. Because you did say you're quite good at, with this analytical mind about being defensive, and the best form of defense is offense. And so if you can create a conversation to put people into a place that they're uncomfortable with, you're safe. They'll never look at you.
Yeah, that's true.
It's awesome, because if you kind of, and you step back, you go, interesting, when I pull out that stuff is probably when the conversation is going to places where I'm going to feel a bit vulnerable, a bit exposed. And yeah, you know, like for me, I feel vulnerable and exposed when people talk arbitrary crap, you know, superficial stuff. I just shut off. So you're either going to have a proper conversation or we're not going to talk. And I'll happily be the kid sitting in the corner entertaining myself, you know. And eventually someone comes and goes, why are you here? I say, well, because there are a bunch of people that I don't quite connect with. And then we'll end up sitting all night talking. But it's like we developed those strategies. So if we know that like 90% of my survival strategy is a defensive thing, then you start to go, okay, cool. Now that I know that, where and how does that show up in every aspect of my life? Because there's the beautiful thing about this is what we see in one place, we see in every place. And this is huge. This is huge. And this is why when you've been on workshops and I'm extracting information, whether it be in the 1, 2, 3, or whether it be in a conversation, what I'm always doing is I'm extracting. So I can then go, oh, well, that's interesting. You mentioned something about your mom and your, and this. And then I'll take this behavior that you quite readily admitted here, and I'll put it over there. And I'll say, so there's a likelihood that you do this. And the person sits thinking, oh, how can you know that? Well, actually, you just told us. And I've just extracted that and taken it to there. And suddenly you realize how in this place that, and then they do this, so I defend like that. Okay, so you defend, you do it more subtly in that position, but you still do it. And let's go over here. Oh, you do it there too, and you do it there too. So we have our themes that run through.
I think,
so if your world says I need to always defend, what it means is it says I'm never safe. And if I'm never safe, therefore I must always remain alert and mindful in aware, so that nobody gets in and challenges. Now, if I'm in a fight, a flight, or a freeze in every part of my world at all times, just at various levels, do you think you're going to get a lot of blood going to your digestive system?
I suspect not.
Okay. So therefore, we have a high chance of abdominal discomfort, inflammations, spastic colons, ulcerative colitises, you know, constipations, all of these things. And we can go, okay, what are we going to do about that? So we can channel, and we can do what I did yesterday. We can go for a colonic, and we can clear stuff out, and we can take medicine. We can do all of these things. We can try and address the inflammation, or we could go, you know what? I'm still in a fight, flight, or freeze, and this is how my body is manifesting it. And how do I do that? So my question to you would be this: do you think it's possible, with your 7 or 8 years of mindfully being aware of your breath and doing it completely right, but imagine the completely right that you've got right now is only 30% of the capacity of what you could have if your system truly let you into your breath, where that dropping down the staircase really happens. And so for me, like when I teach the staircase and I talk about that, this is the area within our physiology that we don't know that we don't, our physiology doesn't know that it doesn't know that it's not there anymore. And I always go, I don't know where I am on this either. And I learned quite quickly when I had my contact lenses changed, actually, there was a whole nother level that I didn't know that I didn't know, and suddenly I knew, and it was holy crap. And so we don't know where we are in these levels. We don't know, you know, you can go, I can go, I am open, I'm aware, I'm all of this. Yes, but relative to what I know, which is where I was yesterday and the day before. Oh, I'm progressing. Well, that's good. Oh, I'm staying the same, or I'm getting less. That's all I know. But if I've never, ever known openness completely, a totally parasympathetic state, a totally open state, how would I know? And so my question to you, it's one of those just to hold to your system and say, it looks like breathing. It feels like breathing. And maybe you've yet to take that first breath.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right with what you don't know, you don't know. And I think that's probably the thing that I find draws me away from that next step on the staircase, because of the frustration of not knowing how to peel back that next veil. And the bouncing between, I mentioned the Scottish guy on the course earlier, and he was about to start a physio degree, and he said at the end of the course, he said, God, I don't want to do it anymore. It's going to be a complete waste of time because this course has just shown me that it's all rubbish. And actually, and I was sort of saying to him, well, I went through a shift of kind of disregarding all of my uni information, having found all this stuff, because for me, this intuitive feeling of someone's body and engaging with them in the way that Be Activated sort of facilitates felt so much more natural to me and intuitive. But I had to kind of go full circle with that, because again, it's a defensive strategy of the imposter syndrome that I had from university, which interestingly I spoke to other people about, and they said in the health industry, certainly in the UK anyway, there's something they'd come across too. It's this kind of everyone has to be right. You can't possibly share any weakness or vulnerability, or I don't know the origin, insertion, and nerve supply of that muscle. I've forgotten that. And suddenly you're a fraud and you're not a good therapist. And I said to him, but the foundation of stuff that I learned at university is still really, really applicable and relevant.
Absolutely. In order for me to stand in a room with physios and call them out on what they do, I have to know what they do. And I do, because I have a degree in physio. And for me, a lot of what has fueled me is amazing anatomy teachers that were so enlightened and inspiring that they didn't just teach origin and insertion, but they made it alive. And then my system ran with that. So when we're taking a physio technique and going, like when we did our exams, our SPEs, our 5-minute here, show us this technique. If I had time, I'd always go, how was that? They go, great, Doug. I go, can I show you how I would do it? And it was interesting because it was probably a 70-30 split. 70% would be, no, not interested. Shut the hell up. Please go away. You're in pain. The other 30%, yeah, we'd love to know. And for me, I'm like, why wouldn't you want to know? I might do something really stupid and you can reflect back and go, well, that's interesting, Doug. But the reason why we don't do that is because and I go, oh, wow, thanks. But if you go, no, not interested in Instagram, don't want this, well, then you lose the opportunity to learn and progress. And it was interesting. And yeah, so the 30% were interested and the 70% were, hell no, bugger off, you're a pain in the ass, when can we get rid of you? It's actually, that's just you see a pattern in one place is every place. Oh, that's my life. But it's okay.
That's funny in itself, though. I mean, I was talking to my wife recently. I said to her, what's interesting is the thing is not the most important thing for me. Like what I've kind of reflected on is the thing of any conversation or reflection is not the important thing. It's the pattern underneath it. And I used to say to her, like, that's become such a fundamental part of my coaching practice with people, where I'm talking about, like, it doesn't matter if I don't have kids yet, because I again, in analyzing stuff, I see the pattern. I break stuff down into cogs. So I can be working with someone who's a CEO of a big company, or I can be working with a mother who's struggling, with a new child, with her sense of identity because she's not herself anymore, and that kind of classic process they go through. And again, it's because ultimately you're stripping it back to fight, flight, or not you. I have found that I strip it back to fight, flight, or freeze. What's the basis dynamic that you're engaging with? And I think the challenge for me, again, personally, is you can have all those awarenesses and reflections, but like you said, how do you then go down that next step And how do you develop that next level of awareness where you realize your point of reference is maybe slightly closed to your previous state? How do you then fully take the blinkers off?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that you sometimes you don't want to fully take the blinkers off. It's too damn scary. So you slowly open the channel, and as the body's ready, it expands further. And this is really important. It's not about just rip it off and poof, because then you're going to go into something else, which is total overwhelm. And kind of like me having drops in my eyes and my pupils ripped open for 24 hours. It's like there's no ability to block. There's no, all you can do is close your eyes. That's it. Sit in a dark room, open your eyes a little bit. Those are the options. But if my body had chosen to open to that place, then it could also choose to close. And so it's that dynamic of the times and environments where you can be absolutely open, and there are places where you don't want to be that, because you want to be here. You want to be able to see all of this, but your focus is here. And so it's an interesting thing, because sometimes when you reflect back, because obviously when in the NLP and the coaching, the idea is someone shares something with you and you're reflecting back. So it would be always language of, what I heard you say was this. So basically I'm making sure that I'm clear that I heard you correctly. And often when we reflect back, they go, no, that's not what I said. Well, okay, tell me what you did say. And as they realize, and in that conversation, they realize what they've been saying is actually not what they're feeling. And we're reflecting, okay, sometimes that awareness alone is enough to create the change. And that's both a mind, emotional, behavioral, but also a physiological, therefore physical change. And it's just in that understanding. But other times it's, you have that understanding and that awareness, but your system actually now needs to be jump started and rewired and shown that now now we have to bring it into that physical system so you can carry it into the world. And it's a fascinating thing for me at the moment, because when I'm doing the eye exercises, which I've been doing for 2 weeks, not since Thursday, but been doing it for 2 weeks, what I found is when I was doing balancing on my right leg, no issue. My breathing would just stay relaxed, easy. I could do it eyes open, eyes closed. Not always perfect. So I'm not saying it was perfect. But left, what I was like getting frustrated, and I go, well, look, I've had nerve damage on that side, and I could give you 100 reasons why. But the first thing that happened every time I stepped on my left, so I stopped breathing. And I'm like, and when I noticed that, it was like, oh, okay. So why don't I just get like a rhythm with my breath and then go? And then suddenly my breath would stay there and stay there. And then suddenly my balance was the same as the right leg. I'm like, oh, okay. So obviously I've got a lot of trauma from that and a lot of stuff that's happened. But every time I asked that area to do work, my system changed. So if you said, but I was breathing a minute ago. Yes, but I changed the stimulus. The stimulus on 2 feet is different to 1 foot. Right leg, awesome. Left leg, not so awesome. And so we seek and we find those edges, and then we ask questions on those edges of the physiology. So like if I'm and again, I'm not doing this yet. I'm going to be doing all of my eye things in the bungee soon. And I'm going to be adding activations in with all of the things that I'm doing, that Werner's got me doing soon, not yet. I need to learn what happens with what he's sharing with me. Otherwise, if I bring my stuff in, I don't know which one's which. Because what he's sharing with me is great.
Right. Yeah.
And then I want to see, yes, can we make it go faster? Can we deepen it? Can we do all of these things? Those are the goals. But it's like, can you find that edge of resistance and then bring a strength, a stability, a balance to the body, that suddenly that resistance is no longer there? So suddenly, if that's the resistance and that's where you work, you do some work, you activate, you bring an awareness into the neural system, and next minute, That's where it is. Oh, so this is no longer an issue because you've moved beyond it. Now, as we progress out here, we're going to find a new resistance, and we're going to grow beyond that. And sometimes we're growing this way, this way, this way. And the area we checked before over here, which was awesome, now, now we've expanded our circle so much, we hit something over there. Now that I've found my voice, I'm having a conflict because I'm speaking what I've got to say, whereas I've never been able to do that before in my life, and now I am. And now this is a result. Okay, cool. Now we need to coach that because you've never had to consider that before. So it's like new pathways, often new opportunity for new resistances. Oh, how exciting. The work never ends. The more you can see, the more you know, the more you have to consider. So sometimes just going, okay, hang on, I'm just going to shut it all down. That's also a rest strategy. There's a lot in there.
I was having a really interesting conversation with someone not that long ago about, two things that I think linked to what you were just saying. The first is that when I work on the body, I often set it up in advance, depending on the type of patient that arrives. But if you can, because I mean, like we all know, you can see a lot just from their body language within the first few seconds. And so if I kind of have an idea as to what I might be dealing with, I kind of want to pull that thread and sort of see what that means. And often I end up working on someone in silence. And when I talk to them, or then they ask me, they say, well, so what are you feeling for? I said, well, I'm kind of having a conversation with your body. And what's really, really interesting is as I start to move through the tissues, in some directions, you feel that where the body kind of goes, nah. And then in other areas, it kind of lets me in. And whenever I go into this area, your left foot twitches. And when I go into this area, your right shoulder shrugs. And I sort of said, like, it's almost like the body's a tapestry of your life experiences through all the fascial tissues. And when you work into certain parts of it, for me, I think it's really, really interesting to look at all the ways in which it connects to different parts and what that might mean for their story and what I can learn from, well, why does that happen? And again, trying to look at what do I not know that I don't know.
I know what you don't know, that you're an artist. I watched you, and you are not a practitioner, you're an artist. Because if those are the conversations, if your client is happy for you to work that way with them, which I think is amazing, that's artistry. That's performance art to me. And I think that's amazing. I'd love to watch that because it's a starting to see when this, then that, and when this, then that. That's amazing. And so, for me, I want some of that. I want to know when someone's working and can actually reflect that. And for me, I find it fascinating because for all the years and all the work I've had done with me, people always like, when I go, oh, that's interesting. When you do this, that's what my foot does. And they go, wow, you're so aware. I go, no, it's my body. When you do this, that's what my body does. And what you're finding is exactly the opposite, is that the person doesn't know. But when you bring an awareness, hey, did you know? And then they're like, oh, I didn't notice, but now, oh shit, now I can't but notice. Okay, you've just opened a pathway. You've just opened a possibility. Hey, let's go look at another one. That's cool. Dude, I like that.
I think it's one of the reasons why I place so much value on your system and why I say to everyone that, having met you whatever year it was and reflecting on how learning what you taught changed the course of my career. That's why when I emailed you, I used the word mentor because, a friend of mine said to me, he gave me The Alchemist.
You better do a spell check. I'm sure you said mental. Doug, you're
well, you are completely mental, but yeah, I mean, I got given that book, The Alchemist, a while ago, and the guy who gave it to me was saying, you've got to find a mentor. It's really, really useful. Blah blah. Anyway, and I never thought I'd had any, and it wasn't until I reflected. I was sort of sitting there thinking about stuff one day, and I suddenly thought, what is a mentor to me? And actually, I started to consider the impact that you, as a teacher, had on the course of my career and my personal life. And this is not me blowing sunshine, but it's a true reflection of the fact that actually, before I found Be Activated, I was a graduate struggling with the identity of being a therapist, because I never felt I knew enough, and I never thought I was good enough, and I didn't know every nerve and every bone and every muscle. And actually, I graduated that point, and I still battle with that a bit, but I now am in this place of where I get so excited when I'm working on a body that, and I've never thought about it the way you just said it, but it's so true that when I'm working on it, it is such a creative, exploratory exchange. It's not really therapy. It's more, how can we learn about each other? And one of the things that I took from one of Tom Meyer's courses that I did, the guy on the course was saying that it's not a therapist and a patient. It's two people working together. And I think that was a really, really nice thing that I took from that as well. It's not me treating them. It's us. I might be working on the body, but it's the body's working with me as much as I'm working with it. And it's a flow, and it's a bit of a dance.
Yeah. And the thing is that actually there's a song, and I kind of think it's from Annie, but I could be wrong. But it's the song is about getting to know you better. It might be Annie, I might not be. There's someone will let us know. People like to when it's completely wrong. But the idea, if you imagine this, that your role when someone gets on your table or comes in for a session, because it might not even be on the table, is when they leave, they know a little bit more about themselves.
Definitely.
And we can say, yeah, but I don't know more about me, but I'm walking better. Well, you do know more about you, because you know where the sequence is and where things fit in and where their place in your system is. So you know more about that. So you know more about you. Just happens to be within the mechanical world and the movement world or the sequencing world. But it's kind of, it's those moments, those aha moments where you suddenly understand that I've held this story about this happened to me and I did this. And well, why did you do that? Well, I always do that. Yeah, but why do you always do that? And then suddenly you discover, well, you do that because, when someone does this pattern is vulnerable. And the only way to stop it is to say, oh, I don't like crowds, or I don't like this, or I don't do that. And I don't this. And we carve and create a world that takes us away from those stimulus and places that might expose us. And it's and when we understand that, then because the thing is, then you can go, oh wow, I didn't know that's what it is. Then the question has to be not, come, let's go through it, would you like to move beyond this? Because they don't have to. Because I know people who will go, oh shit, no, I've been doing it so long, I don't want to do it differently, I'm quite happy with it. Okay, awesome. So that's not what we're working on. But if someone goes, that would be amazing to get beyond that, because I can see what I've lost. I can see the opportunities I've lost, the things that I've not been able to do, things I've wanted to do, but I couldn't because of da, 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 da. And it's all in our physiology.
Ooh,
and,
right.
No?
There's someone at the front door, sorry.
All right, that's okay. Okay, bye. I haven't lived here very long, so I'm trying to set up a space in the garden to work, and I've ordered some kit, and sod's law, I got emails this morning and they're all being delivered today, so I was hoping they wouldn't come till we finished. Well, that's all right.
I think
there's life. So what are you actually building in your garden?
Well, when we bought the house, there was a garden office cabin. The guy had like this wooden cabin it's like a glorified shed basically, with windows and doors, and he was using it as an office. You have a
tiny office, basically.
Basically, yeah. And I'm trying to turn it into a consultation type space where I can start working from there with COVID and everything. My original clinic that was based in a leisure centre has all been closed down. And yes, it's been opened at times, but then it gets closed again, it's opened again, it's closed again. So it's just trying to build a backup plan, really, so I can.
Well, something that you have control of that not somebody else does, which is a really important part, because one discovers quickly when the world goes chaotic how many things we've allowed somebody else to make decisions on.
Well, what's interesting about it as well is that when I first sort of started out, and I was working in a clinic that another practitioner owned, and I got an opportunity to buy the business and build into it, and kind of started to follow this, for want of a better phrase, fairly stereotypical career progression type thing. And you and I have spoken about this before, because you said you did a similar thing. And
I had 3 practices before I burnt out, and then went, and then I looked and went, why am I doing this? And actually, when I got back in a tiny little teeny tiny space at the back of a health shop, I was working 2.5 days a week, and I was clearing as much money as when I had 3 practices with overheads and this and that. And I was like, they lied to me. No, they didn't. They gave me a framework that they thought was right too, you know, as you did. So
I found myself becoming a model of a therapist that, like you say, the system, for want of a better word, wanted you to be. But the more I started to realize that, and looking at setting up here, I find myself asking myself, actually, who do I want to be as a practitioner? Like, not who have I been, or what system do I have to fit into, but how do I create my own system? How do I create a situation where I can walk around barefoot, or I can, have what, like you said to me, in our last course, you said, what's your strength? And we talked about the dogs. And I hadn't spent really any time with the dogs. And yet now, on a daily basis, because of lockdown, I spend time with them every morning, and, I've got pictures of them, and, so it's about surrounding yourself with your strength and creating a system, which kind of links into what you were saying a second ago. I was thinking about it, like, it's so difficult to recognize sometimes that you fit yourself to a system, or do you fit the system to yourself? And so we ask ourselves the questions when we're working with a patient, for example, like, to what extent am I holding on to the way that I want things to be, because that's my construct, and so on. Yeah. So I don't allow myself to get drawn into the patient's stuff and the way they want me to behave as a practitioner. Because I've had that before, where patients say, well, can't you just do this?
No, but what you think they think you should be doing.
Yeah. But even when they say to you, like, well, why can't you just, like, you, for example, you're talking about the discomfort earlier. So you find something that's really painful for someone, and you explain to them that sometimes you kind of have to go through this stuff. If you're ready, then you're ready. If you're not, you're not. But you can't have the good without the bad, and you have to. It's just about getting to know your body, and it's not about right or wrong. Or so you look at that side of things, and then people say, well, can't you just do it softer? Why can't you just do it gently? And then there's that question in my own mind about, okay, so I've got a couple of reference points in my head here. Either I can adjust my habits, behaviors, techniques, whatever, to fit them.
Yeah.
And then am I allowing myself to be influenced, and do I need to stick with what I know to be right as a system of, well, you have to go through this pain if you're ready? Or am I then trying to hold on to my reference point in my own mind of what I know to be right? So where's that balance between not being obnoxiously right all the time, but also not allowing yourself to be drawn off course by the patient and what they want, because actually what they need and what they want are 2 different things, maybe.
Maybe. And I think the way I like to do it is I say, well, of course I can go gently, but then we're going to have to do this over 5 sessions. And if we do it, and if we get through this, then we do it today. And that's entirely up to you. But the one is going to cost you 5 times as much. And it's amazing how, now that they're given a choice and they see that, yes, it's going to be a slower progression, and it's going to cost more, and we're going to have, so we'll get to the same point we can get to in 2 minutes. In 5 weeks. Entirely up to you, though. So of course I can back off if that suits you. And often I'll actually make a comment about, I am actually saving for a surfboard, so that would really work for me. And I'll just put it into perspective. And yes, there's a little bit of setting pressure on, but most people will go, all right, well, let's do it. And you know what? Most of the time, as you go back into that point, that resistance is different anyway, because sometimes it is the surrendering in, I actually choose to be here. And that's them choosing this rather than, oh God, he's found this stuff. And no, of course we can back off. Hey, we can do this over 50 sessions if you like, but boy, then we're buying a car. It's,
the other thing that I was thinking earlier when you were talking about a lot of this stuff about a patient I had, and I remember you and I spoke about this one-to-one outside of the course last time, where some patients or clients that come to see you, they just don't want to be there, and they've come because a friend has referred them or whatever that has led them there, but they're not ready to actually do the work. And actually what I ended up getting from this woman was such a level of disrespect for me and the work I was doing. And I was kind of grounding myself in it, thinking, okay, this is not about me. This is not, she's just in a certain place, and I was, I might be able to help her. So this is all evidence to me that she needs to help even more, because she's so resisting. And anyway, so you're kind of looking at the body language, you're looking at what she's saying, you're looking at all of that. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting so disrespected by session 2 that towards the end of session 2, I actually said to her, I don't think I'm the practitioner for you, because she was so unready to open her mind up, and she was so holding on to everything.
Yeah.
And I just thought, this is just not healthy. Like, what are we getting out of this?
But you see and that's really important to see that, and to acknowledge that sometimes someone is not ready to do the work, or sometimes the work is not the right work for them to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's because although we know that technically if you breathe and you move, then activation will help you. There's the simple thing, but it's my email that I was going to write on Sunday was actually going to be about the difference between a skeptic and a cynic. And it's very important, because the cynic comes into your practice and goes, I've been referred here, I'm just going to tell you, I think it's a load of hogwash, I don't believe it, and I'm here just to check because I said I would. Now that person is the easiest person in the whole friggin' world to win over, because their expectation is nothing. What they want is they want an experience of the change, the success. So don't fear them, answer their questions, give whatever. The cynic is not there to find answers. They are there to prove that they are right. The world revolves entirely around them, and they will take everybody down with them. That is how the cynic is designed. Their value, their payoff, their success is devaluing everything around. So when you have someone like that, and you feel, because you use the language, you felt disrespected, how can you hold space for someone that you actually feel is taking pot shots at you? So very quickly to be able to step back and go, you know what, I don't think you're the right patient for me. How now just think how it's not like I don't think this is right for you. I actually don't like working with you.
I wanted to say that, but I didn't know if I could.
No. And the thing is, I'm not saying anyone listening to this, I'm not saying that's how you do it, but it's an awareness inside of you. I don't feel safe, if you like. I feel under attack. How am I meant to help you and journey with you and facilitate if you're attacking me? So like somebody has a seizure or an epileptic fit. What's the first thing that you do? You make sure the space around them is safe for them to have a good seizure. That's your job, first and foremost, is to create a space where it's safe for the client to do the work. If you are not safe in that space, you can't create that for anyone. And so let's say that this woman was just the perfect antagonist for your patterns. You know, and where someone else could bring the same energy and will be almost like taking pot shots at you, and you'll be chuckling, going, oh, this is hilarious. And so you react and you don't feel unsafe because you can see it. Where, let's say she could reach in and hit some of those places. So suddenly you were defensive. Suddenly you were distant. Good luck. And so actually in that moment, you know what, we're not going to be good to work with, and it's okay. And that's the hardest thing, because in that we've got to acknowledge that how we feel in those situations is very important. You know, there's no obligation to be in that patient-client relationship. There's no obligation. No. And especially when it's your business in your home, this is what's really important. You need to guard and protect that. You know, it's just like we need to stand guard at the door of what we allow in, the voices that we allow in, the information that comes in the spaces, that our spaces, our home, our office at home, these are very important places for you to make sure they are safe for you. When they're safe for you, you're going to do amazing work, whatever it looks like. If it's not, then suddenly you find it becomes very difficult. So the reference point is always through me. How am I feeling? Gosh, you know, if you're feeling crap, that's okay. You know, you acknowledge, but they're not feeling crap because they make you unsafe. You know, so imagine just like extending this. So imagine I go, Paul, I want you to do a session with me. We're going to do it good African style. So what I'm going to do is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold in my hand something called a knopkiri. Okay. A knopkiri does not look like this, but it could be this. Okay. It's a wooden version with like almost a fist on top, and it's hard wood. So I'm going to hold a knopkiri, and anytime, dude, that you hurt me, I'm going to smash you on the head. Let's go. I would like you to work with me. I have these issues. I want to be vulnerable. Knopkiri. And you go, Doug, I don't think this is a good idea. And I go, it's just a knopkiri. Yeah, but look who's holding the damn knopkiri. See, right now, I hope people listening to this are going, knopkiri. How do I, knopkiri? And
most got Google out, they're trying to find the word.
Yeah, but the thing is about this is you'd go, well, that's damn stupid. I don't feel safe. You're going to hurt me, right? There's the extreme of this. Or I put a gun to your head and said, come, activate my diaphragm, brother. And you go, no freaking way. How far removed when you start to put your clients on different levels? You might be going, oh my God, she didn't have a knopkiri and she didn't have a gun, but hell, the imminent threat for whatever reason was there. And so if you're not safe, none of your gifts, so your creative, your artistic performance art that you can do with press here, and did you notice that, all of that requires safety. That requires your system to drop to allow you to feel and see, and therefore also reflect back to someone. When you know that space is not available, that means you're not safe. That means you won't be able to find that in you either. And so when I see that pretty much in all the practitioners is when somebody comes into their room, that if they get this person right, they will open up this opportunity, or they will do this, or they will do that. And you're no longer thinking about what's happening here. You're now thinking about what happens next, which is my Kelly Slater story, because I was already thinking, you know, I'm going to a surf ranch and I'm going to Chopu in Tahiti, which is the next event. And God, I was crap. I was such a rookie, and I can see every time I've done that, you know, and it's like you take yourself out, so you're not doing the work, so therefore you actually can't see what's going on because you're here. And so if someone has triggered your fight, flight, freeze, you're here. So all this stuff you're missing. And someone sitting on the outside looking in will go, hey, Paul, did you notice that? You go, that's not happening because it's here. But when your system is safe, when your system is more here, then it's this artistry. And it allows you to be doing, let's say it's a SOAS test and you notice something, or they do something, and then suddenly you can very easily draw in the NLP, or you can draw in some fascia line, or you can, because suddenly you realize it's an interplay. But on the days when you can't, when you're stuck in one thinking, in one system, then you know your system is stuck too. And you're also allowed to have those days, by the way. You know, it's kind of called human.
I think what was interesting about this lady compared to before as well was the fact that before I wouldn't have called anyone out on it. I would have just, you know, and it's amazing how many therapists I've shared that with who've also felt the same, that actually as the therapist, you don't matter. You're there to serve the patient and they're always right. And, you know, if something's going wrong, it's because you've done something wrong as the therapist. And actually the difference was in this situation, I was able to stop and recognize that I think I'm, having spoken to other patients and practitioners, I create a good, trusting, safe space where there is a two-way relationship and we're working together. It's not me working on them. It's a two, you know, and those people are the ones that get to the end of the session, like we've all seen and heard with that, with the system, like, wow, I never thought this was possible, or no other therapist has ever shown me this, or God, I'm so excited by what I think this could lead to, or, you know, and I say to my wife, like, I would love to refine my filtering process at the start so that the patients and clients that are coming into the room are those kind of people who want the work, who are ready for work, and who are going to respect and appreciate the work. Because it's not about wanting to cut out the people who aren't ready for it, but it's about doing them a service of giving them a filtration process where they can see that's just not right for them. I don't know if that's even possible, but
I'm gonna just question you about this woman in a different way. So you saw her twice.
Yeah.
What were you wearing on those days?
Tracksuit bottoms and a company polo t-shirt.
Okay, what color was the company polo t-shirt?
Black.
So let's say that she has a problem with the color black. She doesn't know it yet, right? And every time you go, look at me, she has to look at this damn black shirt, right? Okay. So no matter what you do, it actually had nothing to do with you. It was your shirt. Okay. Option number one. Option number two, she was bullied her whole life by her older brother, who looks a bit like you and is a big guy, just like you. So she doesn't see Paul, she sees her big brother who dominates. And this is a chance to push back and get one up. Of course, this is all unconscious, but she knows that she doesn't like you. It was never about you. In fact, it was her brother that referred her to you. So not only is that, and you were wearing the damn black t-shirt. And why this is important, can you see how when you create a story about why she didn't like the technique, she didn't like me, it's who she was referred and she didn't want to be here. Yes, all of those are possible and probably all correct. But there's even more to it. There are other factors going on. There are things, and it's not about saying any of them are right or wrong, but it's about, can we ask those questions too? You know, I wonder what would have happened if the second time you were wearing the yellow t-shirt or the yellow shirt. Would that make a difference? And, you know, like this morning, I popped down to Gary's surf shop, and Gary was with the head of New Balance years ago and sponsored me, and they were taking too long to organize the sponsorship. So the third time I went in, at that point I was sponsored by Reebok because I was lecturing for Reebok Alliance at the time, and I had this bright yellow shirt that said Reebok. And I just went in the morning, first thing in the morning. So I caught him off guard, sat down in his office. I said, Gary, I need you to hurry up and sort this out. And I'm not leaving until you do, kind of. And I'd let the t-shirt do the rest of the work. And he will happily share the story about the call to action that came because of this bright yellow Reebok shirt as the head of New Balance in my office. And Doug was literally, I was sticking my thumb deep in, and we had a great sponsorship relationship, and Gary's awesome, he's a good friend of mine. But he always talks about that. He's like, we were dragging our feet a bit. There was a lot going on, and Doug wasn't having anything. And so instead of doing bitching and moaning, he just disrupted. So the yellow Reebok t-shirt disrupted his system. So we know that things can disrupt your system. And so it's the question, like, if someone says something, like, I'll often go, oh, sorry, do I smell? Is it me? And they might go, well, actually, I don't like it when you do that. Oh, that's interesting. Why don't you like that? Well, now we've got a thread to pull. And so it may even be at the end of that second session going, it seems like it's not working. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about me or what I do, but I feel like you don't want it. And she might be going, no, you're amazing. I love you. Somehow I'm not picking up on that. And so, maybe she's sitting at home devastated because you rejected her, because she was actually showing you love. It's no, but this is how crazy it is. No, because, dude, that I've got stories and stories and stories. So this one I've told before, but the first time I taught in Denmark, lunchtime at the end of on the first day, I walked into the kitchen and I was like, fuck, yes, I say it too. I've never had an audience I can't win over, ever. And Glyn comes in, ex-South African, 20 years in Denmark. He goes, Doug, I know what you're thinking, but I got to tell you, I've never, ever seen a group in Denmark this excited. I swear anywhere else in the world, they're throwing bras and panties at you, even the guys. I'm like, no. He said, I promise you, they are on the edge of their seats. Just let them know they can show it, because where we're from, people just don't. And so after lunch, I went back and I was like, guys, this is how I'm feeling. And Glenn has told me this, and I don't know which one's right. Can we do this by a show of hands? Who's enjoying this? Who's really having a good time? Everyone. This is the most amazing thing that you've ever. I was like, holy crap. Their way of showing and expressing was so different. Scandinavia, come on, dude, they're different. And it's not wrong, but it's a way of expressing that I had not encountered before. And so what was so interesting is suddenly I also then gave them permission to express. And, and suddenly the dynamic changed. We have people who come in the courses in Denmark because they know on this course, I can bring my stuff. I can say what's there. I can do this. I can feel all these crazy things, and it's cool. And it's like, so when we start to extract and go, hang on, it's not as simple as they didn't want, because that's easy, and that's also convenient. There's the people who want and the people who don't want. And if you don't want, if I can just figure out which box you fall into, that make my life much easier. But imagine you went, I wonder what else could be getting in the way of us figuring out stuff. It's kind of like everybody can dance. Some people can dance really well. Some people can dance really crappy, but everyone can dance. And some people can dance a certain way, but they can't dance another way. And so just like if you can breathe and you can move, if you need to breathe and you need to move, you need to dance. You can dance. It might be me sitting going, somehow I feel like Dr. Evil here, actually, but and someone, but that's not dancing. Dude, bugger off. That's dancing to me. That's the best I've got. Well, then I can dance. And so it's the the challenge of therapeutic training and medical training is it teaches you this. And sometimes what happens is people think that when you've done well is I think like this. Yes, but it's still a straight line. It's just a wider corridor. And our goal has got to be, can we ask questions from a place that hasn't been considered? Because if I'm going to ask the same questions or have a conversation with you, exactly the same as the conversation that everybody else has already had, I add no value to you. But if I can bring a different perspective, a different way of thinking, considering, maybe you look at something differently in your life, and therefore when you get off the table, you are different. I had to share a message with Carl yesterday because he's working with someone that kind of indirectly I'd sent. And when I was checking in, and he's like, yeah, no, I'm not sure he's quite got it, that he's a believer, I think. And when his wife messaged and said, oh, wow, no, amazing, he's back, he's a total convert. And like, Carl was like, oh, I didn't know. Well, yeah, because you've got two guys. What's the guy's going to go, dude, I love what you do. Oh, that's not, so sometimes we think we've got the knowledge or we're reading the situation right, and we're not at all. And so it's not in any of this about being right or wrong. It's about, have we considered all the possibilities? And it doesn't mean and when we step back and go, hey, you know what, because I hadn't considered that, because she antagonized me right off the bat, I actually missed something that may or may not have made a difference. I'm going to do a reverse of what I would normally do. So let's say on that particular day in the practice, someone had brought a lovely bunch of flowers in. Okay. And you'd go, wow, that's amazing. Brightens up the place. People will love that. Let's say she has a mild allergy to those flowers. Okay. But they're beautiful. But it's mild enough that she's not itching, she's not getting red-eyed, but she's getting irritable. So there's something in the environment that triggers. And I hope people listening to this are going, oh my God, this is so much to consider. No, it's not. It's just a different way of considering it. A very good friend of mine who works in the UK, years ago when we chatted, he had a practice linked to a rugby club, and he had a practice and the other part of his work was in the corporate environment. And when we were chatting, he said, in the rugby environment, I am a friggin' good physio. We get great results. The guys love me. Awesome. In the corporate environment, I don't know what it is. I actually feel like useless. And I go, well, describe the two environments. And so the corporate environment was not only here, all these guys in their suits and fancy and all of that. It was an incredibly sterile environment that made him uncomfortable. So all we did is we said, how can you bring something that inspires you, which was his kids? So he just literally put photo of kids in this corporate space. And he was different. And suddenly the results changed. Of course, like any good friend, when we met up again, he kind of goes, oh, fuck you. As he should, because it's like, how could it be that simple?
Yeah.
Well, it's not simple. It is simple, but it's not that easy to discover. So, it's like we are different. The different environments influence and impact us differently. And when you notice that I'm different here to there, now you have to go, I wonder why. Not, oh my God, I'm different. Something's wrong. No, nothing's wrong. What's different? And that's why it's so cool that you are literally creating your environment right now. This is my place. And you create it for you, that you feel good, because then you have a far greater chance of creating a great space for the people who come in.
It's 12 hours.
That's definitely that's my computer, sorry. That's I mean, that's definitely a shift
We've
for
been
me.
talking for 12 hours.
Yeah, the computer's telling me to shut up. Yeah, I think that's a big shift for me, and I think going on from what you were just saying there, the reflection that sometimes when you start to draw, like ask people certain questions to open up their awareness around a certain issue, that I find particularly with clinicians like other physios, doctors, etc. They want that diagnosis, they want that kind of clinical Western, and I'm kind of just kind of trying to not avoid it, but like you said in one of your courses once, like as soon as you diagnose something, you've kind of potentially, not categorically all the time, but you put a frame around it, and then there's less room for but what if.
Yeah.
And I think in my own work on fascia and learning in my own journey, like I have a really genuine, deep-rooted belief that there's very little the body can't heal. And there's very little, once you realign that balance and once you get the body back into a healthy equilibrium, I really believe that all of the aches and pains and everything, illnesses, whatever, however severe, can start to find their way back. It's just figuring out how do I get from A to B in aligning that body. And certainly with this lady, she was very committed to that diagnosis and that, because she was a clinician. And when I started to pull those threads and just say, well, what could that be about? And eventually on the second day, after I'd said,
so she was a clinician. And
Yeah.
this is important information. So the thing about a clinician, anyone who's got training, in order for her to accept what you're sharing with her, what does she have to do?
Value or trust my authority or knowledge?
Not even slightly. She actually has to acknowledge that what she knows and what she does is wrong.
Or potentially, yeah, incomplete.
Okay. So do you think that's a fight worth having? My existence revolves around this, and you're showing me something that literally says what I do, what I am is bullshit. And I know that you have a smug little Peter Pan look as well in you when and I've done it many times before when I've gone, and I can just see them going, I'm going to kill you, mother trucker. It's because sometimes someone has their existence. I think the easiest people, because they're most real, are the physio students that come on the programs. Because I remember the first one very clearly in McGregor. A friend of mine, Corey, this is 16 years ago. We were running a program out there. And at lunchtime on the first day, I walked outside and she was just sitting on the stairs crying. And I'm like, wow, did they hit something quite hard? This is like a javelin champion, tough woman. And she goes, I'm 2 years into my physio. And every single thing that you've taught today is basically saying that everything I've learned in the last 2 years is wrong. I went, God, that must suck. It does. What am I going to do? I go, you're going to learn now with a new open mind. You are going to go and learn what they have to share. You are going to pass, and you're going to get the piece of paper, knowing that this is not all that there is, knowing there is more. Oh, yeah, because you still need a foundation on which to understand the work that we do. Because for me, without my physio background, I would not be able to do this. Everything I've learned is then built on that. What's good about what I've learned and what's not good about what I've learned. And that's really important. But it's kind of, that analytical mind. Okay. So what I feel, or what I think I'm hearing you say, is this: that I have a theory, I have a thing that I want to go and investigate further, right? And that's your analytical mind. But your analytical mind is no longer the curious child, because the analytical mind is going, I see something, And now I'm going to go and find things and pull on that thread until it reveals that. Okay. The curious way of investigation would be to go, that's when I look at you, this is the thread that I want to pull on. This is the area I'm drawn to, and I'm not sure why. So you almost heads up rather than almost the and I'm going to go in there. You do that one too. Yeah, and the thing is that it's all in there. It's the cleverness of us makes us actually shut down, and so we go in this one avenue. And the thing is, can you allow that cleverness, because the cleverness is valuable, with curiosity? Curiosity means, I think I see something, but I don't really know. You know, it's like every study that's ever been done, the minute they start the study, they go, we're going to go and see if this works. Bullshit. We are there to prove something so we're going to design a study to prove it to be right. Why else would you do it? You know, we as humans, like, I'm going to go and spend the next 3 months studying something to discover that I might be wrong. Are you friggin' mad? That would be really stupid. That would be career suicide. It would be a waste of my time. My ego will be in tatters. You go. So therefore, you can't even say that. Well, people go out to prove something in the study. Of course they do. It's human nature. It's what we do. Then, you know. So that's why we get devastated when we can't prove it, you know, and some people get so devastated that they start shifting the numbers around to prove, and so we can go, what bad people? Well, no, they're actually human. That need to, but if we could actually on a smaller level go cleverness with curiosity, then you become an artist again. Because the analysis side doesn't have the artistry in there, and it doesn't actually have Paul in there either, by the way.
I think one of the things that I sometimes get lost in, like your approach in courses that I've seen, like that kind of playful Peter Pan, a little bit of smugness, like it's quite useful to create a playful environment with your client or patient. You know, I feel, having watched you in those small moments on courses, that I have a very similar way about me as you do, which I find very, very useful for that kind of, like, sometimes you'll get like you said, the difference between a skeptic and a cynic, you know, so you'll get some playful bounce going around, and then you'll get a little bit of a psoas activation, and they'll be looking at you like, what the hell's just happened? How is that leg suddenly strong? And I kind of go, well, you're welcome, you can leave now. And
Nice.
you have some fun with it. And
oh, no, I just like saying to them, oh, I'm actually just not pushing as hard. They're like, oh.
Gotcha.
Everyone's so afraid people are going to say that. You need to use the lines. But yeah.
But I think what's interesting is, again, coming back to what we said earlier about, as a therapist, knowing where your boundary is, because with this lady in particular, she needed the work. I could see, and she said to me after I'd said to her, like, I don't think this is the right match. I don't think we've got a good relationship, etc. You know, I said to her, you know, I think there's some more going on here. Like, kind of what you just said, like what I'm becoming aware of is X, and I kind of want to pull on that thread, but I get the feeling that maybe you're not ready, or, you know, that's your choice. And she said, oh, I know there's loads going on, and I know that there's this and that. And she started opening up a bit more about the more emotional stuff. And, but by that point, you know, I'd already kind of reflected on the fact that she was holding on so tight to her own framework, and she was so resistant, and that was showing up in disrespect to me, that I had already made the decision that actually, as a therapist, to protect myself, as you say, and keep myself safe, I decided that I didn't want to continue with it because the relationship's just not right.
You're such a bad human being. Here's this poor woman who's now left, desperately needs your help, and you threw her out to the wolves, and, you know, she cries herself to sleep every night now.
It's funny,
and the
right?
reason I'm saying that, by the way, is because you have been judged It's you and me having a conversation, but I guarantee you people listening to this are going, God, Paul, you decide, and then you know, as she started to open up, no, you made a decision that made sense to you professionally and within you, and it's the right choice, because you have to take care of you first. And if she got hold of you today and said, Paul, you know, the end of that second session was really important because I've reflected and this is what's come up. Please, can I come and see you again? You'd obviously go, no, bugger off. I mean, sorry, you'd say yes, of course you could.
What's interesting about that is, I think it's a really important point to make, that I think a lot of therapists get so drilled into this desire to help. And I'm absolutely one of them. And I wanted to help this woman, but sometimes you just kind of have to accept they're just not ready for it. And I've had people come back to me like a year later, you know, where they're not quite absorbing the work and you're not seeing the progress and we're plateauing. And I'm kind of like, look, I'm just taking your money for no reason now. Like, we're not getting anywhere. I think you need to go away, reflect on what we've done, think about it, let it sort of settle in, let it marinate, whatever. And then they come back like 12 months later and they go, oh, do you know what? Something happened. I was having this conversation at work, or something changed, and I suddenly went back to what you were saying a year ago, and it now makes sense, and I want to carry on. And if you turn someone away for what you think are the right reasons, you have to trust your barometer that actually, you know, I have to keep myself safe. And otherwise, I think a lot of my issues in my body and a lot of the stress and tension and pain is because for so many years, I remember on the first ever course I did with you, you asked me how many hours I'm working, how many days I'm working, blah, blah, blah. And you were like, you are insane. You're doing too much. You're going to burn out. And sure enough, I feel like my body has been telling me, you know, you're taking on too much. And it took me a long time to get that and actually put myself first.
Think how much you've been working very hard to nurture and take care of me. So obviously when I first wanted to do the interview, you had a week where you were busy, and then once my eye thing came up, you were very clear. Every time I said, okay, let's do it, you're like, dude, I think you're not taking care of yourself yet. And okay, I'm going to Sunday night. No. Doug, you know, you don't have to. You were, and you were taking care of me, you know, and that's huge, because you were reflecting and saying, Doug, you're sharing that you're in a crisis of sorts, and I understand that you are committed to doing the interview, doing the work. You said you would do this. This is what, you know, and this is what people must understand. Like, why am I doing the interviews? Well, one, I love doing them. I love connecting. It's what we've got right now. But it's also because I said I would do it. I said to everyone, I will have an online presence every day, and I will do a podcast every week. And in my world, once you've said that's what you will do, you do it. And sometimes it's difficult and uncomfortable. And so my obligation was driving me, and you were going, dude, just back off, because actually, you know what, we had the deadline is tomorrow, and so it's perfect. And so it is amazing how our obligation and the obligations that we've set up and create drive us, but they can take us out of ourselves. So we stop making sure we are okay. And so sometimes just acknowledging that's what you're doing is enough to change what happens in your physiology. So for me on Sunday, the minute I found the article that basically said, when you have drops put in your eyes, this is the process. It can last 4 to 6 hours. That was completely opposite to the information I was given. And what was really important, I think the only thing that for me was wrong in my process is I should have been told this when I booked in. You're booking in for this. This is the process. You may not want to drive. You may want to have someone there, or a taxi or an Uber, or none of that. So it was literally in the session when I learned that. So, and someone could say, well, you should have known better. No, not really. I'm a client coming for a new thing I've never had done before, and I did not know. And then I was put in that place. But in the back of one's mind, you can be falling down, uncomfortable, whatever, and you go, yeah, but I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and I've got to, and there are times when you absolutely have to do those things, and there are other times when you have to back off. So this is just a reflection on, so you were very acutely aware that I wasn't fully looking after me in order to make sure we were having this conversation, which is awesome. Now, the question is, can we turn that back to you? Can we turn that and say, what are you going to do differently so that we are going to stop feeding your analytical, very clever mind? Okay. Because you are very good at learning a lot. You're learning like what every possibility could be. And it all happens kind of out here. But somehow you haven't got your breath yet. So with all the intelligence and cleverness around you, somehow it hasn't integrated into your body. You can help other people integrate into theirs. You can support me. I'm not easy to support, by the way. So the fact that even you were doing that, I was like, interesting. This is different. So you have a skill set. Okay. But how do we turn that inward? And sometimes, you know, and for me, a very important story was turning inward after my head-on collision in 1996, where I was looking for Doug out there, as though the answer was out there, but the answer was in here. And so I know for me, when, you know, my grandfather literally coached me, and as I kind of went, he said, everything you're looking for is inside you. And I took my hands and I brought it here, and I can do it now, and I can feel it. I feel the center of Doug in that instant, and suddenly everything is there and out. And so why this is important is, what happens if you took your hands like this? Okay. And then you just turn them inwards. Don't touch, you just bring them here. And so all the healing and attention and care that you give others, you direct inwards towards you. And the question is, do you find anything different? Like Paul in there?
I find that I think I have the answers that I need, but I don't give myself the time to actually apply them on a daily basis. You know, I think how to heal the hip, the back, like, but actually how much time do you give to yourself on a daily basis to stretch, strengthen, roll, meditate, breathe? It's about prioritizing yourself.
Where was the play? Where was the play? Come on, where's the play? So without knowing anything about your back and your hip and you do know that the issue that you're looking for is entirely in your rotational pattern. Obviously, because our entire conversation, remember, a pattern in one place is in every place. So if you're very good at analytical, but you've got awareness, so we can open it. We'll say that you've got like a sagittal plane. Maybe you've got a little bit of a shimmy for a lateral plane, but dude, you ain't got no rotation, because rotation is really important, because rotation allows you to do a 360-degree perspective. So not only in your body is it a movement pattern, but it is a mind pattern too, where you can literally walk around and look at something from completely the opposite direction. You know, you could almost have a debate with yourself. Here's the one thing that I've decided, and now I'm going to go and find the exact opposite, and I'm going to be able to give a perfect analytical reason why both are true. So your hip is your rotational pattern. And it's those rotational. So if you are doing things that like in your play, in your movement, that you're thinking rotation, you're thinking how the puppies move, because their rotation is so subtle and beautiful through their systems. That's why they roll and throw themselves about with such ease. So, so instead of meditating and stretching and mobilizing, try and be like your dogs. And we'd like to see the video of when you're wagging your tail, because and it sounds so ridiculous, but no, we don't want to see the video, thank you. But how many dogs have you got?
5
beautiful huskies, by the way, everyone. And
yeah,
and how do they wag their tails? How do they're moving their hips, they are engaging the system, they are creating a flow. Let them guide you. You already said how much joy you're having with them, but let them be your teachers. You don't have to look after them, let them look after you.
It's funny. Yesterday I was in the garden with them, and it's funny you're saying this, because as I've been doing more bungee work, and I find myself playing with them more, like rather than just being with them. So yesterday, like one of them in particular, like I was playing like I play it with my dogs, and tag, or whatever people call it in country. And like she's running around the back of the kennel, running around the picnic table, and I'm running around. And I only did it for a few seconds or a few minutes maybe. And I was really like changing direction, like, like when you're a kid playing touch rugby or whatever, like, and my legs were burning. And I was thinking, geez, I can do kettlebells, I can go walking, I can do this, I can do that. But just 45 seconds of playing it with my dog.
Unstructured play. And this is what's so important. Do you know what the most important thing lacking in children's growth at the moment is? Unstructured play. All their time is allocated for. Unstructured play is your creativity, is where you do crazy things, your imagination, your 360-degree vision, and all of these things. The play isn't a ha-ha fun. Play is about experiencing everything. It's like, I don't know what the weather's like at the moment, but when have you got grass for the dogs?
That's a long story.
Do you have ground?
We had grass, and then they churned the garden up because they ran around with it. So now the top half of the garden is AstroTurf, which is where they run around.
Okay, that's fine. So you can play with them there, but you've got to. Do your dogs roll on their back and do all that, like stretch their back? Yep, that's on the AstroTurf, buddy. So you have like the dead cockroach, but don't be dead. So that's what they're doing, and then you actually have to be on all fours, and you have to wiggle your ass as though you're wagging your tail.
I'm gonna get my wife to video.
Don't have anyone watching you, because and I hope that you don't get your dogs too excited, because that could be interesting too.
No, it's fine. They're all neutered. I'm safe.
Well, we'll see. But those movements are the movements that find a problem that you are wanting to solve. Think about it. Write some analytical shit about it. Then go do those 2 things with your dogs. Then go back and see if you can look at that thing from a completely different side. And you may be amazingly surprised how different your whole mind is because of it. And when you get to bed, and you have to warn your wife about this, you're going to get under the covers without using your hands, like your dogs would. Let's say one of your dogs actually wants to get under the covers. One of ours does this. So you've got to get your head and you've got to get under and you've got to get over the fact that you're going to be embarrassed. Even though thinking about it, you know, it's like, it's silly, but can you get under your duvet, under your blankets without using your hands? And you realize how the kind of movement patterns that you've got to do and the things you've got to do, you feel ridiculous even if nobody's watching. You're chuckling because it's so stupid. And then you pray that nobody set up a camera while you weren't looking, you know, all of those things. But you start to realize that you have to use a different way of thinking, a different way of moving, a different way of integrating with your environment that requires a totally different you to arrive at that. You do that, and suddenly you've got different patterns going on in your body. And I don't like to preempt, but I would be very interested to see which one, the getting into bed or the cockroach versus the waggy butty tail, which is the one that's going to engage your breath the most.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
Because they're going to ask you to do things differently. And you're going to come up against your, what we would call parat. Parat is like your this is what an adult should look like. This is what a therapist should look like. You know, you're going to come up against that, and you have to see it, and you have to chuckle and go, you know, the tough part about this is going out to the world, which means people listening and watching this program at some point next week will send a message online on Facebook by email to Paul and say, hey, Paul, have you done it? Hey, everybody, because you know this is important, because accountability is a really important part of this process too, you know. But let's see what happens. And the cool part is, if nothing happens, if nothing is different, okay, now we've tried something, it didn't work, we check something else. But the question is, what happens if it is what you need? It is what you want. It is what your system's been waiting for. It's a permission to be a dog.
It's what's really funny is that you're right. Like, so much of what I spend my time doing is trying to learn stuff and develop my skill set and do courses. And one of them, I did a course with Ido Portal in London. And honestly, by the time I got to the end of that course, I had the most, I don't know how to describe it. It was this, in fact, I do. It was earth shattering to my brain. Like, I remember coming home on the train from London and feeling so overwhelmed by excited possibility. It was like being out in the ocean and suddenly there was just space everywhere. My body just felt, it was like a physical activation, but through movement. And I just moved in ways that I hadn't in years. And my point is that it created such a shift. And yet, despite that, amazing, weird, like, oh my God, I could achieve anything in life. And I've got all this like movement and freedom. And I came back and I didn't do the stuff that we did on the course. I didn't go and have fun.
Of course not, because what you did is then you sat back and you went, I wonder why that worked. And you thought about it a shitload and you analyzed it a hell of a lot. And you can talk about the cleverness of Ido Portal, but his strength is that he dedicates 6 hours a day to movement. So he truly is an expert on movement, because his dedication is every day 6 hours minimum. So he does incredible, amazing things, because but let's leave him out of this. But for you, why that was such a mind and body expanding experience is, while you were doing all those movements, your brain had to shut the hell up and stop thinking.
Yes.
Okay. So can you see the full circle? That if you are trying to understand, if you are trying to learn, if you are trying to analyze your body, you are just a head. You're a floating head. You are not a body. And the poor body is left with this tiny little bit of extra energy just to try and function and move and do stuff. Whereas if you can get into your body, if you can integrate, you'll realize how much of your mind is in your body. But you have to switch the one off to get into the other. So So I reckon it's now at least 5 minutes of butt wiggling, tail wiggling, and at least 5 minutes of cockroach. Imagine you have an itch on your back and you've got to get it, and you've got to get it. And, you know, your dogs are going to think you're hilarious, and that's even better.
I love it.
You're getting under the blanket. You just have to be able to get under the blanket. So the time limit is as long as it takes you to do that.
In terms of accountability, I'm going to video it and I'm going to put it up on my social media so you can see it.
Excellent. I am very glad. So I think that's an awesome part one.